Vuestro Dios estaba muerto, y el paraíso que os prometieron estaba podrido. Sois marionetas en un circo de horroroso espectáculo. Mensaje en una botella.
Is it surreal to you that you started out in a newsroom at one stage like this, and you're now, and you've left that behind, and you're talking about all this other? I mean, is it? Because I just picture myself. I'm in a newsroom. I'm probably going to be here for quite a while, being a journalist, and you abandoned all that overnight, really.
Yes, I did. I was a news presenter and sport presenter with the BBC, but you know, in a way, very much in a way, I'm doing the same thing now. I'm a journalist, but I'm a journalist that doesn't have an editor. So, and I'm an editor that doesn't have a proprietor, and I don't have a board of governors. Thus, what I find, I communicate. And there's this other thing, too, that, and I know how it works because I did it for years. You come in to cover a story, or you come into work, and you're given a story to cover. You probably don't know much about that story, so you're getting up to speed on the hoof. And then by the end of the day, you have to have done a report on that story. And it's a challenge. I've been there. I know what it's like. And thus, we have so many mainstream journalists, even without the censorship and stuff that goes on, who are being asked to be jack of all trades every day. What I've done for 21 years now has traveled the world, 55 countries, full time, focusing on uncovering the main theme, which is who really controls our lives. Because it ain't prime ministers, and it ain't presidents, and it's not heads of the World Bank and secretary generals of NATO. They are people in the structure, but they're not the origin of human control. It goes beyond that. And so having done that for 21 years, I've been able to uncover vast amounts of information that journalists in the mainstream have not decided to do, and in the structure they're in couldn't do anyway. Because what news organisation is going to say, hey up mate, over here, you've got 21 years, go where you like, see who you like, and come back in 21 years, tell us what you found out.
Not going to happen.
It's not going to happen,
no.
But that's what I've done, so therefore that's why I've come up with this stuff, and mainstream media does not.
What I find, and a lot of people find really interesting about your material, is that people can read a lot of your stuff and get it, and that it makes sense to them. And yet there's some content that you put out that people, it takes another leap of faith, absolutely. I suppose. And I don't know, the reptilian shape-shifting thing, that is something, for instance, that people would hit and go, sorry, what?
Yeah, exactly. And I completely understand that, because, you know, having done this for 21 years, you realise something very, very important, and that is the world that we think we're living in, and the powers that are in control of the world we think we're living in, and the world we're actually living in, and the powers who are controlling that world, are so staggeringly different. There is this gigantic chasm between the world we're told we live in and the world actually we do live in when you do serious research.
Right.
And you're asking people to make that leap. And a lot of people don't do that initially, but over the years, they do. I mean, I've just had an interview today on an American talk show in America called the Alex Jones Show. And we talked about some of this stuff because people never would have before on that program, because people are now saying, well, hold on a second, when you read the detail, it does actually make sense of the world. And, you know, I'm interested, David, in one thing, what's going on and who's doing it. And I have no censor in here, no preconceived idea, no belief system, which is going to say, the information's pushing me there, but I ain't going. I'll go where the information takes me. And it's taken me into some bizarre areas, but areas which can be supported by detailed evidence and research, ancient and modern. I mean, here's the thing, you know, I do talk about reptilian entities behind this.
Can you just explain that in the simplest way?
The thing is, David, that this is mainstream anthropology and history. The oldest form of religious worship in this world, going back at least 70,000 years to Africa, where every modern man's supposed to have come out of course, out of Africa, is serpent worship. And why is that? Why do all the ancient cultures around the world, whether it's Africa or Asia or North America or wherever, why do they have stories of serpent beings and reptilian beings? Why? I mean, did they have a discussion sometime and say, you know, let's have these? No, it's because it's come from something. And it's one of the most compelling things for me, David, is that the research on this subject that I picked up in the modern world through insiders and various other things is a mirror of what the ancients talked about in their own way. And there comes a point, you know, when I get information about strange situations, I don't just go, here, this is what's happening. I put it on the back burner and I let it go. How much more is going to come? Is anything else going to come? But there comes a point where the body of information and the common themes from different people in different parts of the world, you cross a line where you think, no, there's enough evidence here. This is something to look at. And that's when you start communicating it.
Right. Do you think people ever make that jump to believing in that stuff as well?
Well, people are making that
yeah.
jump. I mean, it's kind of funny when I started coming across people around the world in America that were telling me about this reptilian aspect to world events in the shadows, in the background. Never see. Although some people see.
Can we just rewind for 2 seconds? So I just want to make sure I've got my head around this.
Right.
You are essentially saying that certain people in power, like I think the Queen that you mentioned before,
well,
there is a lizard under the skin. Am I getting that right, or is that metaphorical?
Let me put it this way, David. This is why in interviews this long, I don't talk about this stuff. For a simple reason. On Sunday in Auckland, I will talk for 9 hours. The first 2.5 hours will be about the nature of reality itself. What is this world? Who are we? How come quantum physics knows that can't be solid? Because it's made of atoms that have no solidity. And once you realize, for instance, that I'm looking out of my eyes now and you out of yours, and we seem to see everything in the space that we're looking at, but we don't. All we can see is a narrow band of frequencies which science calls visible light. Everything else in the space that we are occupying is invisible to us. This is why you'll get a cat and other animals will react to what is to us empty space. It's not to them. They've got a wider visual acuity. And thus, when you start to realize that this apparently solid world is not solid, when you realize that actually we're only seeing a narrow band of frequency while thinking we're seeing everything, when actually other worlds interpenetrate this reality, just like radio stations interpenetrate each other because they're on different frequencies, then what is possible in this world in terms of explanations for what is happening are dramatically expanded compared with if we accept this is solid and this world is solid. Because, you know, you talk about, you know, entities that are able to change shape. And people say, you can't go from a solid body to a solid body. No, you can't. The fact is the body's not solid. It's holographic. It's a hologram. It's illusory solid. And because it's illusory solid, it has a fluidity that can do things that if it was literally solid, it could not do. So what I do in my events is the first 2.5 hours are all about the nature of reality. Who are we? What is this world? What is this? Yeah. Then I explain from that perspective, and that's when the pennies drop, when I'm talking about these reptilian entities. Because of that, people are going, I can see how it's possible now. And then I go into the way the world's controlled today, and then I go into what we can do about it. And
you need that time to outlay that stuff. Yeah, I get you.
You know, if I'm talking to you about from the perspective of the reality that everyone basically accepts, I can give you 10-second answers and 20-second answers and 30-second answers because I don't have to explain anything because everything's taken as read. But once I'm looking at a whole new explanation of the world, I can say things in 10 seconds, 20 seconds. People go, he's mad. But give me 2.5 hours and they'll go, that's amazing. That's the difference, you see. And this is why my talks are all day.
Right, because that was going to be my other question. It's a long time to talk, and that's why you do talk for that long.
Yes, I do it without a script. I don't stand there. I don't stand there at a podium.
It's not all on auto cue.
Page 685, Jason. I thought it was going to start.
I thought it was just a book reading.
No, I talk off the cuff because you know, for me, you know, I see politicians going to podiums and they're reading, like Obama, reading off his teleprompter, or they're reading a script. If they really knew the subject, if it was really coming from the heart, it would need a script. Just tell me what you think, you know.
Yeah.
And therefore, I talk for 9 hours off the cuff, and you know, there's a lot of humour in it. Because you know, when you realise the world we live in as it is, illusory, physical, and how we think we're living in it, it is hilarious. It is hilarious when you think, you know, the level of the illusion we're living.
You've got to have a sense of humour with it.
Oh
yeah.
You've got to have a sense of humour. You know, I've got to have a sense of humour to be on planet Earth, haven't you? I mean, crikey. Don't take what's going on planet Earth seriously. That's the worst thing you can bloody do. Crikey.
Amazing bit of advice.
That's why. Yeah. That's why when people say, "He's mad," I say, "Thank you so much." Because if a world as insane as this one that can pepper bomb cities of civilians because they want to protect civilians, then if that world sees me as sane, whoa, I'm in
something
trouble.
to worry
I'm
about.
in trouble.
Yeah.
I want it to see me as insane because it's confirmation of my sanity.
Obviously, you've got a really healthy way of looking at this and taking criticism and all the rest of it.
People have a right to believe what they want.
Rewind to when the Wogan interview where everything went mad.
Yeah.
How awful was that at the time? Because you had, I mean, your family got harassed by people. You got harassed.
Yes, the thing was though, David, that you know, one of the things I say in my talks, you know, life has this amazing ability to give you your greatest gifts brilliantly disguised as your worst nightmares. And you know, for me to come out now and talk about the stuff that I do and write about the stuff that I do, one thing had to be deleted from my makeup, and that was the fear or concern with what other people thought of me. And because if you do that, you ain't going to go in the areas, some of the areas I go into, because you obviously know. You know, people have said to me, "Did you not know that they'd laugh?" Do you know I did? But I did it anyway because I believe it to be right. And thus, that period of the Wogan show and the ridicule was extraordinary. I mean, going into a bar, forget it, uproar. Walking down the street, for about 2 or 3 years, I lived my life to the sound of distant and sometimes not so distant laughter. Comedian only had to say my name, no joke necessary, got a laugh. When you've been through that level of ridicule, one of two things happen. Either you disappear from society, or you go, "I am me, I am free. And this is me, and if you don't like it, we'll do the other thing." And what it does is you walk out of this prison that most people live in, which is the fear of what other people think. Because once you are in that prison, you are no longer living your life. You're living someone else's version of what you should be, because you're staying in those parameters that they dictate is the norm, so that you don't get ridiculed or harassed. Now, I've reached the point now, long ago, when thanks to my incredible level of ridicule, I let go of all that. So when I get information now, and it makes sense to me, and I can validate it? Is that validate it? That's the word. Validate it.
You talk too much. You talk too much.
My mouth don't work, as the man said. But I put it out there without a single what will people think? I don't care. You know why? They have a right to think whatever they choose. They have a right to accept it, accept bits of it, or reject all of it. Because the last thing that this world needs is someone else standing up on a stage and saying, I'm right, you're wrong. And if you think differently to me, then you must be wrong. I must persuade you to my point of view. I'm not interested in that. Here's some information, make of it what you will. I'm off somewhere else. See you later.
Just finally, talking about power, we've got an election coming up. Is it worth voting, in your opinion?
Well, I wouldn't come into New Zealand for a few days and start dictating to New Zealanders what they should do. But what I can do, David, I can talk in the greater picture. And that is that I have not voted for goodness how long, because what I found in country after country after country, in Australia, in Britain, in America, everywhere, is you have this structure. You have the two people being put forward to be the leader of a country, like Obama and McCain or whatever. In America, it could be the American example, but it's a blueprint for everywhere. Behind Boy George Bush, during his 8 years, where it came out very much in the mainstream media, were a group of people called the neoconservatives or neocons. Well, the Democratic Party has a group of people, which I call the democons, and they control the parties. This is the key. The democons and the neocons at the next level answer to the same master. And that's why if you come down, it doesn't matter if it's Bush or Obama, the same things happen. Now that is happening in every country, and of course that which they answer to, that's what's in the shadows, that's what you never see. And that's what makes voting an irrelevance as it is now, largely, because you're voting for two masks on the same face. The face, however, keeps its head down.
If you could have this life again, would you do anything differently?
Nothing. Nothing. You know, we go through life and we think life is a series of random events, when what I've realized in my life has been a series of links in the same chain. And when I started on this journey 21 years ago, I had the experience of being in journalism for a long time, and in television and in radio, saw it from the inside. I had the experience of being a national spokesman for the Green Party and seeing the irrelevance of politics to changing the world for the better. And many other things that had happened to me up to that point, which were perfect experience for what I'm doing now. So, no, you know, there's things we don't like, and there's things we do like, but they have one thing in common. They're both experiences which we can gain from. And sometimes it's the ones we don't like that give us most.
Hey, look, thanks so much.
Pleasure, David. Nice talking to you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, mate.
No, I appreciate
Cheers.
it. And it's
Cualquier sistema que montéis sin nosotros será derribado.
Mensaje en una botella.